Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract wealth effortlessly, while others work tirelessly without financial breakthrough? What if I told you that your entire financial reality could transform in as little as 24 hours? Not through grinding harder, but through mastering the hidden language of your subconscious mind. Has this ever happened to you? You've tried everything, working longer hours, cutting expenses, even praying for financial relief. Yet abundance remains just beyond your reach. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because the answer isn't found in doing more, but in thinking differently. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. I'm about to share with you a profound secret that Joseph Murphy discovered decades ago, yet most people will never learn. The universe doesn't respond to effort or time. It responds to assumption. Your current financial situation isn't the result of bad luck or insufficient work. It's simply mirroring the inner state you've been unconsciously maintaining. The most powerful moment to change this inner state is right before you drift off to sleep. In those precious minutes between wakefulness and slumber, your conscious mind relaxes its guard, allowing direct access to the subconscious, the true creator of your reality. When properly spoken during this sacred time, certain words can seal themselves into your deepest mind, compelling the universe to respond by morning with new opportunities, unexpected income, or brilliant solutions to financial challenges. Stay with me until the end of this video, because I'll be revealing the exact phrase that, when spoken with genuine feeling before sleep, can activate forces beyond your imagination to manifest wealth in ways that might seem miraculous, yet are perfectly aligned with universal law. Think about this. What if the struggle you've experienced isn't necessary? What if abundance isn't something you chase, but something you allow? What if your imagination, not your labor, is the true source of wealth? These aren't philosophical questions, but practical principles that can transform your financial reality starting tonight. I've seen people manifest unexpected checks, lucrative opportunities, debt forgiveness, and even inheritances they never knew existed, all within 24 hours of applying this method correctly. The key isn't in hoping or wishing, but in assuming the feeling of already possessing what you desire. The universe is constantly responding to your internal assumptions. It doesn't care about your past financial struggles, your current bank balance, or how hard you've been working. It only mirrors back to you the state you dare to assume as true. Tonight could be the night everything changes for you. As you prepare for this transformation, remember that the power has always been within you, dormant perhaps, but ready to awaken at your command. If these wealth manifestation principles resonated with you, hit subscribe to join our community of conscious creators. I share powerful techniques like this one that can transform your financial reality. Let me share a revelation that transformed my understanding of abundance. Society has programmed us with a deceptive formula. Work harder, save more, delay gratification, and maybe, just maybe, you'll achieve financial freedom someday. But look around. How many people follow this exact blueprint yet remain trapped in scarcity? This conventional wisdom isn't wisdom at all. It's a hidden form of bondage. The universe operates by principles far different from what we've been taught. It doesn't reward struggle or acknowledge time as we perceive it. What appears as luck to the untrained eye is actually law in perfect operation. Your financial reality isn't responding to how many hours you work or how diligently you budget. It's responding to your mental assumptions and the energetic frequency you maintain. This is why two people can take identical actions yet experience vastly different results. One person launches a business from a state of desperation and struggle. Another launches from a state of abundance and certainty. Same actions, radically different outcomes. The journey to wealth transformation begins when you recognize that your internal state creates your external reality, not the other way around. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by revealing the most powerful moment to reprogram your relationship with abundance. That moment is the threshold between wakefulness and sleep. Those precious minutes when your conscious mind relaxes its critical faculty and your subconscious lies open and receptive. During your waking hours, your analytical mind acts as a guardian, filtering what enters your deeper consciousness. But as you drift towards sleep, this guardian steps aside. This is why worries seem magnified at night. They're dropping directly into fertile soil. But this same psychological doorway that amplifies fears can be deliberately used to plant seeds of prosperity. Words spoken in this twilight state don't merely register as concepts, they drop from lips to heart, embedding themselves as lived experiences. Your subconscious cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and physical reality. When you fall asleep feeling wealthy, your subconscious accepts this as your truth and begins orchestrating circumstances to match this inner conviction. I've witnessed profound shifts occur within 24 hours of someone applying this method correctly, not because they manipulated external circumstances, but because they altered the invisible template from which their reality is continuously generated. These aren't random coincidences, but precisely orchestrated responses to an internal shift. The true mindset revolution happens when you stop thinking of abundance as something you'll eventually attain and start experiencing it as your present reality. This isn't positive thinking or wishful visualization. It's conscious reality creation through psychological law. The hidden truth few understand is that your subconscious doesn't recognize will have or hope to have. It only knows have or have not. When you declare, "I will be wealthy," you're actually reinforcing lack. When you assume, "I am wealthy now," despite external appearances, you activate the creative mechanism that manifests that very state. If this resonates with you, write, "I'm ready for the inner shift" in the comments. Now let me show you exactly how to formulate the perfect prosperity decree to speak before sleep. The essence of transformation lies in understanding that the universe operates by exact principles, not by random chance or luck. Just as gravity unfailingly responds when you drop an object, the law of manifestation responds when you impress a vivid feeling state upon your subconscious mind. This revelation changes everything. What appears as good fortune to most people is simply this law in operation: imagination fulfilled, assumption clothed, and belief made visible. The universe mirrors back to you with scientific precision, not what you hope for, not what you wish for, but what you dare to assume as true. It's responding to your inner conversations and the feeling tones you maintain, not to your outer hustle or strain. This is why two people can take identical actions yet experience radically different results. One carries the vibration of struggle, the other resonates with certainty. Consider the profound implications of this truth. If the universe unfailingly responds to your imagination rather than your effort, then wealth creation becomes an inside game. The primary battleground isn't in the marketplace, but in the quiet sanctuary of your own consciousness. This insight liberates you from the exhausting pursuit of trying to control every external circumstance. The hour before sleep holds extraordinary power because it's when the veil between your conscious and subconscious mind naturally thins. During your waking hours, your analytical mind evaluates and often rejects new programming. But as you drift towards sleep, this guardian relaxes, allowing direct access to the creative center of your being. Words spoken then carry the weight of absolute authority to your subconscious. What's truly fascinating is that your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. It simply accepts what you impress upon it as your reality, and then works tirelessly to bring that internal blueprint into physical expression. The subconscious doesn't argue, doesn't question, doesn't delay, it simply accepts and expresses. Subscribe now to unlock more of these hidden manifestation secrets. Each video reveals another powerful technique from Joseph Murphy's teachings that most people will never discover. This is why the decree you speak before sleep must be crafted with precision. It can't point to some distant future or express mere hope. It must declare completion, the sense that what you desire is already accomplished. When you understand this psychological mechanism, you realize that effective manifestation isn't about begging or pleading, but about embodying the consciousness of already having received. The exact phrase that activates this transformation is deceptively simple, yet extraordinarily powerful when spoken with genuine feeling. The words themselves aren't magical. The magic lies in the feeling they evoke. The phrase must be short, present tense, and clothed with absolute certainty. When you whisper, "Thank you, Father, it is done," or "I am abundantly supplied now," with the feeling of completion, you plant a seed that must germinate by morning. The journey from scarcity to abundance requires more than surface-level affirmations. It demands a profound identity shift where you no longer see yourself as someone striving for wealth, but as someone who already embodies wealth consciousness. This mindset revolution alters the very foundation from which your reality springs. If this approach to wealth creation feels like a homecoming to you, write, "I claim my abundance now," in the comments below. Now, let me reveal why most people fail when attempting to use this method and how you can avoid their crucial mistake. The most profound awakening on your abundance journey occurs when you realize there's no such thing as luck, only law in perfect operation. This revelation shatters the disempowering belief that some people are simply fortunate while others are unfortunate. What appears as random chance to the untrained eye is actually imagination fulfilled, assumption clothed, and belief made visible through precise, universal principles. Think about those people you've envied who seem to attract money effortlessly. You've probably told yourself they're just lucky, or they were born under a fortunate star. But this perspective keeps you trapped in victimhood. The hidden truth is that these individuals, often unconsciously, have aligned their internal state with abundance. The universe isn't randomly blessing them, it's accurately reflecting their inner convictions back to them. This mirror-like quality of the universe operates with mathematical precision. It doesn't play favorites, doesn't reward virtue over vice, and doesn't recognize effort without aligned belief. It simply and unfailingly echoes your predominant thoughts, feelings, and assumptions. When you carry within yourself a feeling of lack, the world reflects lack. When you embody abundance, the world reflects abundance. Most people spend their lives fighting against this revelation. They blame circumstances, economy, background, or bad luck for their financial struggles. But these external factors are merely reflections of an internal reality. The universe doesn't cause your financial situation. It reveals the contents of your consciousness with perfect accuracy. Consider this profound insight. If two people take identical actions, starting the same business, making the same investment, applying for the same opportunity, yet hold different inner states, they'll experience dramatically different outcomes. One operates from certainty, the other from doubt. One assumes success, the other fears failure. The external actions appear identical, but the internal landscape creates entirely different results. This is why affirmations alone often fail. Your conscious declarations mean nothing if your subconscious beliefs contradict them. The universe responds not to your words, but to the feeling state behind them. This explains why some people can work themselves to exhaustion without significant financial progress, while others seem to attract abundance with apparent ease. The breakthrough occurs when you stop trying to manipulate external conditions and instead focus on transforming your inner relationship with wealth. When you genuinely feel wealthy despite current circumstances, when you move through the world as if abundance is your natural state, the universe has no choice but to reorganize physical reality to match this internal template. Joseph Murphy discovered that this transformation isn't about forcing yourself to think positive thoughts. It's about gently replacing the old narrative of lack with a new awareness of infinite supply. It's about feeling the relief, gratitude, and certainty of already having received, not as a technique, but as your authentic experience. This internal revolution represents the ultimate paradigm shift. When you genuinely embody the consciousness that says, "I already have everything I need," you liberate yourself from the exhausting cycle of chasing, striving, and grasping. You move from the wilderness of someday into the promised land of now. If you're beginning to see how your current financial reality reflects your inner assumptions, type "I see the mirror now" in the comments. Now let me share why the hour before sleep is the most potent time to reimagine your relationship with money. The ancient wisdom, "As a man believes in his heart, so is he," contains a profound revelation that most people miss. Notice that it doesn't say, "So will he become," or "So shall he be one day." The present tense here is deliberate and revolutionary. This timeless truth reveals that the law operates not on what you hope to be tomorrow, but on what you dare to claim as your identity now. This distinction transforms everything about your relationship with prosperity. When you understand that belief isn't about future possibility, but present reality, your entire approach shifts. You stop pursuing wealth as something outside yourself that you must chase, and start embodying wealth as the expression of who you already are. This identity-level transformation is where miracles begin. Joseph Murphy's personal journey illuminates this principle perfectly. While living in New York, he deeply desired to return to his island home of Barbados. Externally, every circumstance opposed this desire. He had no money for passage, no visible means of making the journey, and no logical pathway forward. If we looked solely at his external reality, his return seemed impossible, but Murphy understood the hidden dimension where all manifestation begins. Instead of dwelling in the wilderness of someday with statements like, "I hope to return," or "One day I will find a way," he boldly stepped into the consciousness of completion. Each night before sleep, he would feel himself already in Barbados. He didn't just visualize it, he lived it inwardly with all his senses engaged. He felt the tropical breeze on his skin. He heard the distinct accent of his homeland. He smelled the familiar scents of his mother's kitchen. He walked the streets of Bridgetown in his imagination with such vivid detail that it felt more real than his physical surroundings in New York. He didn't fall asleep longing for Barbados. He fell asleep in Barbados. The revelation here transcends mere positive thinking. Murphy wasn't trying to convince himself of something untrue. He was accessing a deeper reality principle that consciousness precedes manifestation. Within weeks of this inner transformation, the external world reorganized itself to match his inner experience. A letter arrived containing money and passage home. Was this coincidence? Was it strange luck? No. It was the precise operation of law. The outer world simply reflected what had already been established in consciousness. The journey had been completed inwardly before a single physical step was taken. This illustrates why affirmations often fail to create lasting change. When you say, "I will be wealthy while feeling poor," you're actually affirming the absence of what you desire. The subconscious doesn't register your words, it registers your feeling state. It doesn't understand will be, it only knows what is. When Murphy felt himself in Barbados with absolute conviction, his subconscious accepted this as current reality, not future possibility. Your breakthrough awaits when you stop postponing your prosperity with futuristic language and start claiming it as your present possession. The shift from I will have to I already have isn't semantic wordplay. It's the difference between perpetual wanting and actual receiving. If this principle has illuminated something for you about your own manifestation practice, type I claim my prosperity now in the comments. Now let me reveal the crucial distinction between wishing and assuming that determines whether your financial desires manifest or remain forever in the realm of dreams. The profound breakthrough in wealth. Consciousness occurs when you realize that assumption itself is the catalyst of creation. Most people have been trained to believe in an inverted reality, that we must see before we believe. They wait for external conditions to change before they'll allow themselves to feel abundant. This backwards approach creates the very delays they're trying to overcome. The revolutionary insight Joseph Murphy discovered is that belief doesn't follow evidence. Belief creates evidence. When you dare to assume the feeling of wealth prior to its physical manifestation, you set in motion forces that must bring that assumption into visible form. Your conscious assumption becomes the invisible blueprint that the universe faithfully constructs in the material world. Think about this revelation in terms of your own financial journey. How often have you told yourself, I'll believe it when I see it? This seemingly logical approach actually contradicts the creative process. The universe doesn't respond to what you hope to see eventually. It mirrors what you dare to assume is true right now. This is why Joseph Murphy emphasized, belief itself is proof. The feeling of certainty is not the result of manifestation, it's the cause. The delay most people experience isn't because the universe is slow to respond. The delay exists only in our own reluctance to fully commit to our desires, our hesitation to claim them as already ours. We've been conditioned to believe that assumption without evidence is delusional, when in reality, it's the hidden mechanism of all creation. The profound identity shift happens when you stop being a passive observer waiting for random good fortune and step into your role as an active creator. You no longer watch life happen to you. You speak and reality echoes. You assume and the world reflects. You decree and life obeys. This isn't magical thinking. It's aligned with quantum principles, showing that consciousness influences physical reality. Most transformational experiences begin with the decision to assume a new perspective, regardless of current circumstances. This is what distinguishes genuine manifestation from mere wishful thinking. Wishing says, I hope this happens someday. Assumption declares, this is happening now. The universe responds not to hope, but to conviction. Joseph Murphy proved this with countless examples from his own life and the lives of his students. A woman who needed a specific sum for her son's education assumed the feeling of already having the money. She didn't plead or worry. She rested in gratitude as though the sum was already in her possession. Within days, a forgotten investment paid an unexpected dividend for almost the exact amount needed. Was this coincidence? Only if you believe in a random universe. But once you recognize the precise order governing all creation, you see it as the natural expression of law, assumption clothed in physical form. The key distinction is that she didn't simply affirm or visualize having the money. She lived from the feeling of already possessing it. This internal revolution liberates you from waiting for permission to feel abundant. You no longer tie your state of being to external conditions. Instead, you claim the consciousness of wealth first, knowing that external conditions must eventually align with your dominant assumption. If you're beginning to grasp how your assumptions create your financial reality, write, "I am the creator, not the beggar," in the comments. Now let me reveal why the hour before sleep is the sacred gateway to your subconscious mind, and how to use this twilight state to plant seeds of prosperity that germinate while you sleep. What if I told you that the universe responds to your assumption not in weeks or months, but instantly? This revelation shatters one of the most persistent myths about manifestation, that it takes time. The truth is both simpler and more profound. The creative act is completed the moment you genuinely assume your desire is fulfilled. The apparent delay exists only in our physical dimension, where things unfold across time and space. Think about how a movie projector works. The film contains all frames simultaneously, but they appear sequentially on screen. Similarly, the moment you plant a seed of assumption in your consciousness, the entire manifestation is complete in the invisible realm. What we experience as waiting is simply the process of that completed reality, becoming visible in our three-dimensional experience. This insight transforms your entire approach to wealth creation. You're not working to make something happen in the future. You're allowing something that already exists in consciousness to emerge into physical form. This is why Murphy emphasized that the inner act is immediate. The response is certain. Once you genuinely feel the reality of your desire, the outer manifestation is inevitable. The reason most people struggle with this principle is that they've never witnessed the speed at which assumption can materialize. But I've seen financial transformations occur within 24 hours when this law is properly applied. A business owner facing bankruptcy assumed the feeling of financial security before sleep. The next morning, she received a call from a forgotten client offering an immediate project that resolved her entire cash flow crisis. Was this magic? No. It was precise law in operation. Her inner shift reorganized external events with an efficiency that seemed miraculous only because we're not taught to recognize the connection between consciousness and reality. The key insight is that your subconscious doesn't recognize time as the conscious mind does. To your subconscious, what you assume with feeling is already done. This revelation should dramatically alter your relationship with worry and anxiety about money. Most people spend hours each day rehearsing financial concern, not realizing they're using this same law in reverse, assuming lack and limitation with such conviction that it must manifest. When you understand the law works with mathematical precision in both directions, you become far more intentional about the assumptions you entertain. Consider what happens physiologically when you vividly imagine an anxiety-provoking situation. Your body produces stress hormones as if the threat were physically present. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between vivid imagination and physical experience. It responds to the feeling tone of your thoughts, regardless of external circumstances. This same mechanism that creates stress when focused on lack creates abundance when focused on prosperity. The bridge between your current financial reality and your desired state isn't built through exhausting effort. It's constructed through the consistent assumption of already having crossed it. When this assumption is vivid enough to produce genuine feeling, the subconscious accepts it without question. This acceptance is what Joseph Murphy called the law of assumption, and it represents the most direct pathway to financial transformation. The mystery disappears when you realize that imagination doesn't just precede reality, it creates reality. Your current financial circumstances aren't random happenings, but the physical expression of previous assumptions held with conviction. By deliberately shifting those assumptions, you alter the template from which your experience springs. If you've Experience moments where something you deeply desired appeared with unexpected speed? Type "the law works instantly" in the comments. Now, let me show you why time itself is merely an illusion that often prevents people from experiencing the immediate power of their creative consciousness. One of the most revolutionary insights Joseph Murphy discovered is that time itself is not a fundamental law governing manifestation. It's merely the measurement of resistance. Most people have been conditioned to believe that substantial wealth requires years or decades to build. They've accepted narratives like, "It takes 20 years to become an overnight success," or "Wealth building is a marathon, not a sprint." While patience certainly has its virtues, these beliefs often serve as sophisticated justifications for doubt. What appears as the necessary passage of time is actually resistance stretched across hours, days, and years. Your consciousness doesn't require time to shift. It changes in an instant when you truly allow it. The only reason manifestation seems to require time is that most people haven't impressed their subconscious deeply enough with absolute conviction. They harbor contradictory beliefs and conflicting feelings about wealth that create resistance in the creative process. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by sharing an extraordinary experiment Murphy conducted with his students that demolishes the myth that manifestation must be a lengthy process. He instructed them to perform a simple exercise for 3 consecutive nights before sleep. Vividly imagine climbing a ladder, not just visualizing it from a distance, but feeling their hands gripping the rungs, experiencing the sensation of lifting their feet step by step, hearing the subtle sounds of their movement up the ladder. The genius of this experiment was in its seeming insignificance. Because climbing a ladder held no emotional charge, no deep-seated fears or contradictions, the students could perform the exercise with playful curiosity rather than desperate need. By day, he even had them write down, "I will not climb a ladder," deliberately contradicting their nighttime practice with conscious denial. What happened next astounded everyone involved. Within days, not months or years, every single student found themselves in situations where they needed to climb actual ladders. These weren't vague metaphorical experiences, but literal physical encounters with ladders they needed to climb. Some found themselves changing light bulbs, others retrieving items from high shelves, still others painting walls, all requiring ladders. The revelation here isn't that you can manifest ladders, it's that you can manifest anything with the same efficiency when your subconscious accepts the impression without resistance. The ladder held no contradictory beliefs or emotional baggage, so manifestation occurred rapidly. The same principle applies to money when you clear the conflicting beliefs that create resistance. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between imagining climbing a ladder and actually climbing one. Similarly, it doesn't distinguish between vividly feeling wealthy and physically having money. The feeling of wealth, when impressed with conviction, is interpreted by your subconscious as current reality, not future possibility. And whatever the subconscious accepts as real, it must express in physical experience. This experiment reveals the astonishing efficiency of your creative faculty when unimpeded by doubt. It demonstrates that manifestation can occur with remarkable speed when your conscious intention and subconscious acceptance are aligned. The ladder experiment wasn't a parlor trick, it was a controlled demonstration of the precise operation of consciousness as the only true creative force in your life. If you recognize how certain things have manifested quickly in your life, while others seem to take forever, type, "I'm releasing resistance now" in the comments. Now let me share why the decree you speak before sleep must be crafted with precision if you want to compress time in your manifestation process. The profound revelation at the heart of this teaching is that your subconscious mind doesn't recognize delay or distance. Unlike your conscious mind, which perceives time as linear, past, present, future, your subconscious exists solely in the eternal now. It responds not to future hopes or past regrets, but to your present assumptions, clothed in feeling. This is why the precise wording of your decree holds such transformative power. When you declare, "I am wealthy," rather than "I will be wealthy," you're speaking the native language of your creative faculty. The subconscious doesn't understand will be or hope to be. These concepts create distance and delay. But when you claim, "I am," you activate the immediate creative response of your deeper mind. This is why Joseph Murphy emphasized that the name of creative power itself is "I am," not "I will" or "I might." The blueprint of your assumption begins manifesting the moment it's impressed upon your subconscious. The degree to which you genuinely feel the reality of your declaration determines the speed of its physical expression. When your assumption is vivid enough to produce the feeling of completion, time compresses. What might ordinarily unfold across months can materialize in days or even hours. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by revealing the practical application of this principle. Your journey to financial transformation doesn't require blind faith or lengthy theoretical study. It demands direct experimentation. The beauty of universal law is that it can be tested, verified, and personally proven. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, you have the perfect opportunity to conduct your own experiment with this principle. Choose a specific financial outcome that feels slightly beyond your current situation, but doesn't activate strong resistance. Perhaps an unexpected check, a surprise discount, or a small business opportunity. Before drifting into sleep, feel yourself already in possession of this experience. Don't simply visualize it as a future possibility. Embody the feeling of its completion. The key distinction in this practice is moving beyond intellectual agreement into embodied knowing. Don't just think, "This might work." Feel, "This is already done." The subconscious responds not to hopeful speculation, but to the absolute conviction of present possession. As you drift towards sleep in this state, you plant the seed that must germinate by morning. What makes this approach revolutionary is that it bypasses the conventional transformation timeline. You're not gradually building toward your desire through incremental steps. You're claiming its fulfillment now and allowing the physical world to reorganize itself accordingly. This represents a profound paradigm shift from the achievement mindset to the embodiment mindset. Joseph Murphy documented hundreds of cases where individuals applied this principle with startling results. A business owner facing imminent bankruptcy impressed upon her subconscious the feeling of financial security before sleep. The next morning, she received 3 unexpected phone calls leading to immediate cash flow that resolved her crisis. The solution didn't gradually unfold. It appeared with a speed that conventional thinking would call impossible. The revelation here isn't just that manifestation can be rapid. It's that time itself is negotiable based on the clarity and intensity of your assumption. When you eliminate contradiction and hesitation from your creative decree, you remove the very elements that create the experience of delay. If you're ready to test this principle in your own life tonight, type "I'm conducting my experiment tonight" in the comments. Now, let me explain why the subconscious mind is the true creative center of your being and how to speak its unique language for maximum effectiveness. The most profound revelation in wealth consciousness is that your tomorrow is literally being crafted by your assumptions tonight. Most spiritual traditions teach this truth through parables and metaphors, but Joseph Murphy articulated it as precise psychological law. The state you occupy now, not your wishes, hopes, or future promises, determines what unfolds in your experience. This represents a complete paradigm shift from conventional manifestation approaches. The universe doesn't respond to the emotional intensity of your wanting or the logical persuasiveness of your plans. It responds only to your present state of being, the I am that you currently embody. This explains why two people can engage in identical wealth-building activities yet experience drastically different results. Their outer actions may mirror each other, but their inner states create entirely different templates for manifestation. Consider the metaphysical significance of the phrase I am, recognized across spiritual traditions as the creative name of ultimate power. When Moses asked for the name of the divine presence, the response was simply, I am that I am. This wasn't merely a mystical abstraction, but a revelation of how consciousness creates reality. When you declare, I will be wealthy, you're unconsciously affirming the absence of what you desire. But when you claim, I am wealthy now, regardless of external circumstances, you align with the creative principle itself. Your subconscious mind, the soil in which all seeds of manifestation are planted, understands only present tense. It doesn't comprehend will be, or hope to have, or one day might become. These concepts create distance between you and your desires. The subconscious operates solely in the eternal now and accepts as fact whatever you present to it, clothed in feeling and conviction. This explains why affirmations often fail to create meaningful transformation. When you mechanically repeat, I am wealthy while feeling poor, you're sending contradictory messages to your creative faculty. Your words say one thing, but your feeling state says another. The subconscious always prioritizes feeling over words. It responds to the emotional tone of your assumption, not the intellectual content of your declaration. The hidden truth that transforms this from theory into practical application is recognizing that your current sense of identity is malleable. You aren't permanently defined by your current financial circumstances. You're defined by the state you're willing to occupy in consciousness right now. This identity-level transformation is where genuine financial breakthrough begins. Joseph Murphy documented countless cases of individuals who transformed their financial realities by making this subtle but profound shift. A businessman facing bankruptcy stepped into the feeling of security and abundance before sleep. Though his external circumstances hadn't changed, he experienced a profound inner relief. The next morning, 3 separate opportunities appeared that resolved his entire financial crisis. This wasn't coincidence, it was law in operation. The revelation that liberates you from financial struggle is that you need not wait for external permission to embody the state of wealth. You need not postpone your assumption until circumstances improve. You can step into the consciousness of abundance this very moment. And from that state, watch as your external world reorganizes itself to match your internal reality. If this principle of present tense assumption resonates with your intuition about how reality works, type I am is my creative power in the comments. Now, let me reveal why the wilderness of lack is actually a state of postponement, not a geographical location or financial circumstance. The biblical story of Israel's journey through the wilderness contains a profound psychological revelation that Joseph Murphy understood clearly. The Israelites didn't wander for 40 years because the promised land was geographically distant. They could have made the journey in mere weeks. They wandered because they refused to claim the land as already theirs. The wilderness wasn't a physical location, but a state of consciousness, the state of perpetual postponement. This ancient story perfectly illustrates the psychological barrier that keeps most people financially stagnant. They live in the perpetual wilderness of someday. Someday I'll be wealthy, someday I'll be free from debt, someday I'll experience abundance. This constant projection into the future ensures they never arrive because they're living in the consciousness of distance rather than possession. The revelation that transforms your financial journey is recognizing that your own wilderness experience isn't caused by external circumstances, but by your unwillingness to enter the consciousness of completion. The moment you stop saying one day and start embodying I am is the moment you cross over from wandering to possession. This represents the ultimate paradigm shift, from pursuing to embodying, from becoming to being. Joseph Murphy witnessed this principle transform countless lives, including a woman whose marriage had dissolved. She spent months saying, "One day he will return, one day we'll reconcile, one day we'll be happy again." Yet with each one-day declaration, she pushed the manifestation further into the distance while deepening her present loneliness. Murphy guided her to a radical shift in consciousness. Stop living in the wilderness of someday and enter the promised land of now. That night, instead of falling asleep in loneliness, she deliberately assumed the feeling of her husband being present. She felt his weight on the mattress beside her. She heard his breathing. She experienced the warmth and comfort of his presence. Though physically alone, she fell asleep in the consciousness of reunion. Within days, her husband contacted her, their quarrel resolved, and their relationship restored. What happened? She stopped wandering in the psychological wilderness of delay and claimed the end as accomplished fact. The external reconciliation was simply the physical expression of an inner journey already completed. Her transformation wasn't about manipulating her husband's free will. It was about changing the only consciousness she had access to, her own. This principle applies to every aspect of financial manifestation. When you say, "One day I'll be debt-free," you're actually affirming the present reality of debt. When you declare, "Eventually I'll have financial security," you're confirming your current insecurity. Each future-oriented statement keeps you wandering in circles, always moving but never arriving. The journey from financial struggle to abundance requires crossing a psychological Jordan River, leaving behind the wilderness mentality of "I will" and entering the promised land consciousness of "I am." This doesn't mean denying current circumstances, but rather elevating your awareness above them to the realm where all creation begins, the realm of pure assumption. Your breakthrough arrives when you recognize that each someday statement is actually a decision to remain in the wilderness for another day. The promised land of prosperity isn't waiting for external circumstances to change. It's waiting for you to change your assumption from future possibility to present possession. If you recognize how you've been postponing your own abundance with someday thinking, type "I'm leaving the wilderness today" in the comments. Now let me reveal why the way you fall asleep tonight will determine what you experience when you wake tomorrow morning. The journey from financial struggle to abundance requires a fundamental shift in how you approach the creative process itself. Most people have been conditioned to pray as beggars, hoping, pleading, and bargaining with the universe for future change. They approach wealth creation from a position of emptiness rather than fullness, asking for what they don't have instead of acknowledging what they already possess in consciousness. Joseph Murphy discovered that genuine manifestation requires praying as creators do, from the conviction of completion rather than the anxiety of absence. Creators don't hope their vision might someday materialize. They declare it done in consciousness and rest in that declaration. This represents a profound paradigm shift in how you engage with universal forces. When you declare, "I am supplied now," rather than "please send me money," you're speaking from the center of creative power rather than its periphery. You're no longer attempting to convince an external force to bless you. You're acknowledging the truth that abundance is your natural state. This is why Jesus instructed his disciples to pray, believing they had already received He wasn't offering a technique for manifestation. He was revealing the fundamental nature of consciousness as the only creative substance. The moment you shift from begging to declaring, from hoping to assuming, from future to present tense, you plant a seed that the subconscious must express. Not because it's being manipulated, but because it's fulfilling its fundamental nature, to bring into visible form whatever is impressed upon it with feeling and conviction. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the revolutionary impact this awareness has on your entire relationship with wealth. When you recognize that prayer isn't about changing external circumstances, but about changing your consciousness about those circumstances, you reclaim your position as the author of your financial story rather than its helpless character. Consider the difference between these two approaches. A man facing financial pressure prays, "Please help me pay these bills, I'm desperate." For money, he falls asleep in anxiety, rehearsing lack, and wakes to find his circumstances unchanged or worse. Another man in identical circumstances declares, "I am abundantly supplied. Every need is met." He feels the relief of this truth before any external change appears, falls asleep in gratitude, and wakes to find unexpected opportunities, forgotten resources remembered, or problems resolved in ways he couldn't have orchestrated. The difference isn't in their external circumstances, but in the seed planted in consciousness. The first man sowed anxiety and reaped more anxiety. The second sowed completion and reaped its manifestation. This is why Joseph Murphy emphasized, "For tonight's state will rise as tomorrow's reality." The state in which you fall asleep literally programs the experiences you'll encounter upon waking. This revelation transforms your approach to financial challenges. Instead of falling asleep worrying about bills, you can fall asleep feeling the relief of all obligations met. Instead of rehearsing scarcity before bed, you can experience the freedom of abundance. You're not denying current circumstances. You're elevating your consciousness above them to access the realm where all creation begins. The profound truth is that the universe doesn't respond to your needs or your worthiness. It responds to your consciousness. When you approach abundance from need, you perpetuate the experience of needing. When you approach it from completion, you activate the experience of having. If you recognize how you've been praying from emptiness rather than fullness, type "I pray from completion now" in the comments. Now let me reveal why the minutes right before sleep represent the most sacred and powerful time for impressing your desire upon the subconscious mind. The most sacred moment in your entire manifestation journey occurs at the border between waking and sleep. Ancient wisdom traditions have long recognized this twilight state, what the yogis called sandhya, and modern psychology terms the hypnagogic state, as a portal where consciousness shifts from the analytical to the receptive. Joseph Murphy discovered that this threshold represents the most powerful time for impressing your desires upon the creative center of your being. Think of your mind as a garden with two distinct functions. Your conscious mind is the gardener who selects the seeds and decides where to plant them. Your subconscious mind is the fertile soil that receives these seeds and through invisible processes transforms them into physical expression. During your waking hours, the conscious mind dominates, analyzing, judging, comparing, and often rejecting new ideas based on past experiences or logical limitations. But as you drift towards sleep, a remarkable transformation occurs. The analytical gatekeeper relaxes its guard, and the subconscious mind, the true creative power, stands open and receptive. In this twilight state, the seeds you plant drop directly into fertile soil without the usual resistance or filtration. Whatever thought, feeling, or assumption you carry across this threshold becomes impressed upon the depths of your being with remarkable efficiency. This revelation transforms your entire approach to the bedtime ritual. Most people unconsciously use this powerful state to rehearse problems, replay worries, or reinforce limitations. They fall asleep reviewing financial pressures, relationship tensions, or health concerns, not realizing they're programming tomorrow's experiences through these final impressions. But when you understand the creative potency of these precious minutes, you can deliberately use them to plant the precise experiences you wish to harvest. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the psychological mechanism that makes this process so effective. The relationship between your conscious and subconscious mind is akin to male and female energies in creation. The conscious mind selects and declares. It is the active principle. The subconscious receives and expresses. It is the receptive principle. Neither is superior. Both are essential to manifestation. But just as conception can only occur when specific biological conditions are met, financial manifestation requires the proper union of these two aspects of mind. When an idea is presented to the subconscious, clothed in vivid feeling and surrendered completely, a metaphysical conception takes place. The idea is received, accepted, and begins its journey toward physical expression. This is why merely thinking about wealth produces no results, while feeling wealthy with emotional intensity triggers the creative process. Conception doesn't occur through intellectual agreement, but through emotional surrender. Joseph Murphy documented the case of a businessman who had learned this principle. Facing bankruptcy, he recognized that his anxiety before sleep was perpetuating his financial crisis. Instead, he decided to use those precious minutes before slumber to impress upon his subconscious the feeling of abundant supply. As he drifted towards sleep, he whispered, "Thank you, Father, for my unlimited supply," and allowed himself to feel the relief and security of financial abundance. Within days, 3 unexpected sources of income resolved his entire situation. Was this coincidence? Only if you believe in a random universe. But when you understand the precise operation of consciousness, you recognize it as the natural expression of law, the externalization of an inner conception. When you plant worry, you harvest more worry. When you plant gratitude, you harvest more reasons for gratitude. If you're recognizing how your current financial situation might reflect the seeds you've been unconsciously planting before sleep, type, "I'm changing my bedtime ritual tonight," in the comments. Now, let me reveal why the subconscious mind accepts all impressions without judgment, and why this makes your emotional state so critical to manifestation. The most empowering revelation about your subconscious mind is also the most sobering. It accepts everything you impress upon it without discrimination. Unlike your conscious mind, which evaluates, judges, and often rejects ideas based on logic or past experience, your subconscious is fundamentally neutral. It doesn't distinguish between positive and negative impressions. It doesn't reject any seed planted within it. It simply accepts what you give it and faithfully brings it to expression. This psychological principle explains why many people remain trapped in financial struggle despite their conscious intentions to create abundance. Throughout the day, they may affirm prosperity and visualize wealth, but then spend hours worrying about bills, complaining about expenses, or feeling envious of others' success. These contradictory impressions confuse the creative process. The subconscious doesn't prioritize your conscious affirmations over your unconscious fears. It accepts and expresses both with equal fidelity. Every passing mood, every emotional reaction, every fleeting assumption becomes a seed planted in this invisible garden. the angry response to a financial setback, the worry carried to bed about mounting expenses, the sigh of resignation when viewing your bank balance. All are creative acts instructing your subconscious about what to manifest in your experience. This is why Joseph Murphy emphasized the revolutionary idea that your emotional states aren't just reactions to life, they're causative forces creating your future circumstances. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by revealing the mindset revolution that occurs when you truly grasp this principle. Most people live as though their moods are the effect of circumstances rather than the cause of them. They believe they'll feel abundant once they have money, confident once they achieve success, or secure once their financial problems disappear. This inverted perspective keeps them trapped in a cycle where external conditions dictate internal states. The transformation begins when you recognize that your moods aren't merely personal, private experiences. They're creative instructions to the universe. They're the invisible templates from which your visible circumstances are continuously shaped. This awareness elevates the importance of emotional management from a mere self-help technique to a fundamental creative discipline. Joseph Murphy discovered that people who achieved remarkable financial breakthroughs shared one common trait. They guarded their emotional states as carefully as a jeweler guards precious gems. They refused to indulge in worry, anger, or financial anxiety. Not because they were denying reality, but because they understood these states were actually creative forces. They recognized that allowing themselves to feel financially insecure, even temporarily, was equivalent to instructing the subconscious to create more insecurity. This revelation doesn't mean suppressing authentic emotions or adopting toxic positivity. It means becoming consciously selective about which emotional seeds you allow to take root. When challenging financial circumstances arise, you can acknowledge them while refusing to clothe them with fear, worry, or despair. You can face reality without emotionally investing in its continuation. The hidden truth that transforms financial manifestation is understanding that your current circumstances reveal what you've been previously feeling, not what you've been consciously affirming or intellectually believing. The subconscious responds not to words or thoughts, but to the emotional tone behind them. It manifests not what you want, but what you feel real. If you're starting to recognize how your emotional patterns have been influencing your financial reality, type "My moods are creative forces" in the comments. Now let me reveal why the subconscious cannot fail to reproduce exactly what's given to it, making it the most reliable manifestation partner imaginable. The most extraordinary quality of your subconscious mind, the aspect that makes it the perfect manifestation partner, is its unwavering fidelity. Unlike human relationships that may contain inconsistency or unreliability, the subconscious operates with absolute precision. It cannot fail to reproduce exactly what's impressed upon it. This isn't a spiritual belief or philosophical concept. It's a psychological principle that operates with mathematical certainty. Think of your subconscious as the most fertile soil imaginable. Whatever seed you plant within it, whether abundance or lack, health or illness, confidence or fear, must grow according to its kind. The soil doesn't judge the quality of the seed or decide which ones deserve to flourish. It simply provides the perfect growing conditions for whatever is planted within it. This revelation transforms your relationship with wealth creation from hoping and wishing to deliberate planting and patient harvesting. The scripture, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap," isn't merely religious teaching. It's precise psychological law. You cannot sow fear and reap confidence. You cannot plant worry and harvest peace. You cannot impress poverty on your subconscious and express abundance in your experience. The subconscious is utterly faithful, always conceiving and bringing forth after its kind. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by sharing a remarkable transformation that illustrates this principle perfectly. Joseph Murphy encountered a woman who had struggled with chronic illness for years. She had tried conventional treatments, alternative therapies, and endless prayers, all approaching her healing from the perspective of lack. She would plead, "Please heal me. I'm so tired of being sick." Murphy recognized her fundamental error immediately by constantly affirming her illness and begging to be healed. She was actually instructing her subconscious to maintain her current condition. He guided her to a radical shift in consciousness. Stop asking to be healed. Instead, assume you are already well. That night, as she prepared for sleep, that critical threshold when the subconscious stands most receptive, she stopped her habitual prayers of pleading. Instead, she felt the relief, comfort, and vitality of perfect health. She didn't visualize health as a future state. She embodied it as her present reality. Night after night, she repeated this inner transformation, clothing herself in the feeling of wellness until it felt more natural than illness. Within weeks, her physical body began conforming to this new template. Her symptoms diminished, her energy returned, and eventually her health was fully restored. The external healing wasn't the cause of her inner wellness, it was the effect of it. Her body simply conformed to what had already been established in consciousness. This same principle applies directly to financial transformation. If you've been struggling with money challenges despite your best efforts, examine the seeds you've been unconsciously planting. When you worry about bills, you're sowing anxiety and harvesting more reasons for anxiety. When you focus on lack, you're instructing your subconscious to maintain that lack. When you fall asleep rehearsing financial problems, you're programming tomorrow's struggles. The revelation that transforms your entire relationship with abundance is recognizing that your current financial situation isn't random or accidental. It's the precise expression of previously planted seeds. Your external circumstances are simply mirroring your internal assumptions with perfect fidelity. This isn't meant to create guilt or blame, but to awaken you to your creative power. If you're beginning to recognize how your current financial situation reflects seeds you've previously planted, type, "I'm becoming a conscious gardener" in the comments. Now let me reveal why your visible world is nothing more than the offspring of your inner union, the child born of your conscious seed and subconscious conception. The most profound revelation about reality is that your entire physical world, everything you can see, touch, and experience, is nothing more than the offspring of an inner union. Just as a child inherits traits from both parents, your visible circumstances inherit their nature from the union of your conscious and subconscious mind. Your conscious mind contributes the seed, the idea, intention, or desire. Your subconscious provides the womb, the creative substance that nurtures and develops this seed into visible form. This metaphysical principle explains why two people can engage in identical external actions, yet experience completely different results. They're planting the same visible seeds, but nurturing them in entirely different internal soils. Your financial reality isn't determined by your actions alone, but by the invisible marriage between your conscious selection and subconscious reception. When you understand this principle, you stop attributing your circumstances to luck, fate, or external forces, and recognize them as the natural offspring of your inner union. The revolutionary insight Joseph Murphy discovered is that you can deliberately change this union at any moment. You aren't bound by past patterns or limited by current circumstances. You can consciously select new seeds and impress them upon your subconscious, creating an entirely new template for manifestation. Change the seed, and you must change the harvest. not because you're manipulating external forces, but because you're altering the very blueprint from which your reality emerges. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by revealing why the hour before sleep represents the most powerful opportunity for this inner union. Throughout your waking hours, your conscious mind acts as a vigilant guardian, analyzing, filtering, and often rejecting new programming based on past experiences, logical limitations, or societal conditioning. This guardian serves an important purpose in navigating daily life, but it can also prevent the very transformation you seek. As you drift towards sleep, something remarkable happens. The analytical guardian gradually relaxes its grip. The critical faculty that usually evaluates and filters information begins to withdraw. The conscious mind becomes increasingly passive, and the subconscious, the true creative center, stands open and receptive. The veil between these two aspects of mind naturally thins, creating a sacred threshold where new impressions can be planted with minimal resistance. This twilight state is what ancient traditions recognized as a portal between worlds, not physical worlds, but states of consciousness. Modern psychology confirms this transition involves distinct brainwave patterns shifting from beta to alpha, and then theta. In this transitional state, the seeds you plant don't have to overcome the usual resistance. They drop directly into the fertile soil of the subconscious, where they begin their invisible journey toward visible expression. Most people unconsciously misuse this powerful state. They review the day's problems, rehearse worries, or replay conversations that triggered negative emotions. They fall asleep marinating in financial anxiety, relationship tensions, or health concerns, not realizing they're programming tomorrow's experiences through these final impressions. Every worry carried across the threshold of sleep becomes a seed planted in the most receptive soil. The transformation begins when you deliberately reclaim this sacred hour. Instead of allowing your mind to wander unconsciously through worries and fears, you consciously select what you'll carry into sleep. Instead of falling asleep rehearsing financial struggles, you fall asleep feeling the relief and security of abundant supply. You don't deny current circumstances. You elevate your consciousness above them to access the realm where all creation begins. If this revelation about the power of the hour before sleep resonates with your intuition, type, "I'm reclaiming my sacred hour" in the comments. Now let me reveal why the last inner word you speak, the last mood you allow, and the last feeling you carry into silence will echo throughout tomorrow's experiences. The ancient scripture holds a profound psychological revelation when it says, "When deep sleep falleth upon men, then he openeth their ears and sealeth their instruction." This isn't poetic metaphor. It's a precise description of how consciousness operates at the threshold of sleep. The final thoughts, emotions, and assumptions you carry into slumber are literally sealed into your subconscious mind, becoming the invisible template from which tomorrow's experiences will emerge. Think of your subconscious as a recording device that captures your final emotional state before sleep and then plays it back throughout the following day in the form of experiences, encounters, and opportunities. The last inner word you speak, the last mood you allow, the last feeling you entertain doesn't simply dissolve as you drift off. It becomes the dominant frequency your subconscious broadcasts into the universe, attracting matching circumstances with unerring precision. This revelation transforms your entire approach to the bedtime ritual. Most people unconsciously use these final moments to review problems, rehearse worries, or reinforce limitations. They fall asleep, counting debts, replaying conflicts, or anticipating challenges, not realizing they're programming these very experiences to repeat. The financial pressure you feel as you drift off becomes the pattern for tomorrow's pressure. The anxiety about bills you carry into sleep becomes the template for more anxiety upon waking. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how Joseph Murphy discovered the extraordinary correlation between bedtime states and waking experiences. He documented hundreds of cases where people deliberately changed what they carried into sleep and witnessed dramatic shifts in their waking reality. A businessman who had habitually fallen asleep worrying about his failing enterprise decided to experiment with this principle. Instead of rehearsing problems before sleep, he felt the relief and satisfaction of a thriving business. He fell asleep in the consciousness of success rather than failure. Within days, unexpected opportunities, forgotten resources, and new client connections emerged, not through random chance, but through the precise operation of this psychological law. The revelation here isn't just that your thoughts influence your reality, it's that the specific thoughts, feelings, and assumptions you entertain at the border of sleep have exponentially greater creative power than those you hold throughout the day. This is because they drop directly into the subconscious without the usual filtration or resistance, becoming the dominant program that runs beneath your conscious awareness. Consider the wisdom contained in the simple instruction to fall asleep in the state you wish to wake up in. This isn't just practical advice for better sleep, it's a profound manifestation principle. When you fall asleep feeling wealthy, regardless of current bank balances, you're instructing your subconscious to orchestrate encounters, ideas, and opportunities aligned with abundance. You're programming your perception to notice possibilities that were always present but previously filtered out by a scarcity mindset. The mindset revolution occurs when you recognize that falling asleep in your desired state isn't denying reality or engaging in fantasy. It's accessing the causal level of experience where all physical manifestation begins. You're not pretending problems don't exist. You're elevating your consciousness to the dimension where solutions originate. This inner journey represents the ultimate paradigm shift from reacting to creating, from effect to cause. If you're beginning to see the connection between your bedtime state and your daily experiences, type "My sleep state creates my waking reality" in the comments. Now, let me show you why guarding the doorway of sleep is as important as guarding the entrance to a sacred temple, and how to ensure only elevated thoughts and feelings cross this threshold. In the ancient temples of wisdom traditions, the entrance was always guarded with utmost vigilance. Not everyone could enter the inner sanctum, only those who had prepared themselves, purified their thoughts, and approached with reverence. Joseph Murphy discovered that the doorway of sleep deserves the same sacred protection. The threshold between wakefulness and slumber isn't merely a physiological transition. It's a metaphysical gateway to the creative center of your being. Most people unknowingly desecrate this temple every night. They carry the mental and emotional rubbish of their day, frustrations, worries, resentments, fears, across this sacred threshold. They use these precious moments to review problems, rehearse limitations, or recycle anxieties. It's equivalent to bringing garbage into a sanctuary and expecting divine communion. The subconscious, being utterly faithful, accepts these offerings and returns them multiplied in the form of tomorrow's experiences. The revelation that transforms your entire approach to wealth creation is recognizing that what you carry into sleep isn't private or inconsequential. It's profoundly creative. The worry about bills that you entertain as you drift off becomes the template for tomorrow's anxiety. The financial stress you rehearse before slumber becomes the pattern for tomorrow's pressure. You aren't just processing the day's events, you're programming tomorrow's reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the profound journey of inner transformation that begins when you reclaim this sacred hour. Instead of mindlessly carrying the day's residue into sleep, you can consciously choose what offerings you'll place upon this altar. You can deliberately lay aside the old garments of lack, limitation, and worry, and put on the new garments of abundance, freedom, and peace. This isn't denial of current circumstances, but transcendence of them. The words you speak in this twilight state must be carefully chosen to align with this sacred purpose. Joseph Murphy discovered that effective decrees share specific qualities. They must be short rather than lengthy, simple rather than complex, present tense rather than future-oriented, and final rather than tentative. They must imply that what you desire is already accomplished rather than something awaiting future fulfillment. When you whisper, "Thank you, Father, it is done," or "I am abundantly supplied now," you're not attempting to convince yourself of something untrue. You're acknowledging the metaphysical truth that creation is complete in consciousness before it appears in experience. You're aligning yourself with the creative principle rather than struggling against it. The words themselves aren't magical. The magic lies in the feeling they evoke when spoken with conviction. This bedtime ritual represents a profound paradigm shift in your relationship with manifestation. Instead of approaching abundance from struggle, effort, or gradual progression, you access it through surrender, assumption, and immediate acceptance. You don't fall asleep trying to figure out how your financial situation will improve. You fall asleep in the consciousness that it already has improved. This subtle but revolutionary distinction collapses time and accelerates manifestation. The mystical tradition captured this principle perfectly in the teaching that whatever state you sow at night, you will reap by day. This isn't spiritual metaphor, it's psychological law. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between your actual circumstances and your vividly imagined states. It accepts whatever you impress upon it with feeling and works tirelessly throughout your sleep to externalize this impression in your waking experience. If you recognize how you've been unconsciously programming your reality through your bedtime state, type, "I'm guarding my sacred gateway" in the comments. Now, let me reveal why the words you choose for your nightly decree must be crafted with precision if they are to carry the weight of completion. The profound revelation that distinguishes genuine manifestation from empty affirmation is understanding that words alone hold no creative power. Joseph Murphy discovered that many spiritual seekers spent years repeating beautiful phrases with no results because they missed the essential ingredient: genuine feeling. The words you speak before sleep are merely the shell, the outer husk of creation. The feeling you pour into them is the life-giving spark that activates the creative process. Think of your nightly decree as a seed. The phrase itself, whether "I am wealthy now" or "Thank you, Father, it is done," is only the outer casing. Without the life force within, even the most perfectly worded affirmation remains dormant. This explains why so many people can repeat positive statements for years without experiencing meaningful change. They're planting empty husks, shells without life, words without the vital energy of feeling. The subconscious doesn't respond to syllables, grammar, or even meaning in the conventional sense. It responds to the emotional vibration that accompanies your words. When you declare, "I am abundantly supplied," while feeling financially insecure, your subconscious registers only the insecurity. The words themselves bounce off the door of the subconscious, while the feeling walks straight through. This is why intellectual agreement with spiritual principles often fails to create tangible results. The head nods while the heart remains unconvinced. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the transformative alchemy that occurs when words and feelings perfectly align. Joseph Murphy documented the case of a woman who had recited affirmations daily for years without results. Her lips said abundance, while her heart felt scarcity, he guided her to a revolutionary approach. Speak the phrase once, but feel it as absolute truth. That night, instead of mechanical repetition, she whispered, "Thank you, Father, it is done," and allowed herself to feel the profound relief and gratitude of already having received. That single decree, clothed in authentic feeling, impressed her subconscious more powerfully than years of empty recitation. The revolution in manifestation begins when you recognize that feeling is the language of the subconscious. Your emotional state communicates more clearly to your creative center than any words you might choose. This is why Joseph Murphy emphasized choosing a decree that naturally evokes the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The phrase, "It is finished," carries the emotional tone of completion. "Thank you, Father," naturally elicits gratitude. These emotional frequencies are what the subconscious responds to, not the words themselves. Equally important to this process is consistency in your chosen decree. Many seekers scatter their creative energy by changing their phrase nightly, jumping from one formula to another in search of magical words. Joseph Murphy discovered that this approach actually dilutes the manifestation process. The power lies not in finding the perfect words, but in impressing one clear instruction deeply enough that it becomes your default state of being. Choose one decree that resonates with you emotionally, one phrase that naturally evokes the feeling of your desire fulfilled. Then repeat it faithfully night after night, not as mechanical repetition, but as deepening conviction. Let it become your shield against doubt, your staff through challenges, your song in the darkness. The consistency of this practice doesn't create results through accumulation. It creates results by transforming a conscious effort into a subconscious assumption. The true purpose of your nightly decree isn't to convince the universe of anything. It's to convince yourself at the deepest level that what you desire is already yours. When this conviction drops from intellectual agreement into emotional knowing, your entire vibrational signature shifts, and the universe must respond accordingly. If you're beginning to understand how feeling breathes life into your words, type "Feeling is my creative power" in the comments. Now let me reveal why the subconscious mind responds only to the language of feeling and how to ensure your words carry the emotional weight necessary for manifestation. The most profound revelation about your subconscious mind is that it doesn't register words in the way your conscious mind does. Joseph Murphy discovered that while the conscious mind understands language, grammar, and intellectual concepts, the subconscious responds to an entirely different communication system. It hears tones of being, emotional frequencies, and feeling states. This explains why mere repetition of phrases, no matter how perfectly worded, often fails to create meaningful transformation. Think of your subconscious as an instrument that resonates only with authentic feeling. You could repeat "I am wealthy" 1,000 times with your lips, but if your inner being vibrates with the frequency of lack, that's the only message your creative center receives. The subconscious is deaf to empty declarations, but exquisitely sensitive to emotional substance. It doesn't register syllables, it registers states of consciousness. It doesn't hear what you say, it feels who you are being as you say it. This revelation transforms your approach to manifestation from mechanical technique to authentic embodiment. The question shifts from "What words should I repeat?" to "What state can I genuinely feel?" The most powerful decree spoken without feeling has less creative impact than a wordless moment of genuine abundance consciousness. Your entire manifestation journey simplifies when you realize that feeling is the true language of creation. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what happens after you've impressed your desire upon the subconscious through feeling-rich assumption. Most people undermine their manifestation through what happens after the initial creative act. They plant the seed through vivid imagination, clothe it in genuine feeling, and then immediately begin worrying about results, checking for evidence, or wondering when and how their desire will manifest. This anxious monitoring is equivalent to digging up a seed repeatedly to check if it's growing. Just as no. Farmer would plant in the morning and then excavate the soil by afternoon to monitor progress. No conscious creator should impress their desire upon the subconscious and then obsessively check for results. The revelation that transforms this entire process is understanding that your work is completely finished once the assumption is felt as real. Joseph Murphy documented numerous cases where manifestation was delayed or prevented entirely because people couldn't surrender to the invisible process after the initial creative act. A businessman impressed upon his subconscious the feeling of a specific financial goal being met. He felt it so completely that he experienced genuine relief and gratitude. But then he began checking his accounts hourly, worrying about the mechanism of fulfillment and questioning whether the law would work in his particular case. His anxiety and doubt effectively counteracted his initial creative assumption. True faith isn't hoping your desire will manifest. It's resting in quiet confidence, knowing the work is already done. It's the Sabbath consciousness that follows the 6 days of creation, not because the Creator was tired, but because the work was complete. When you can genuinely relax after your creative act, knowing with certainty that invisible forces are already rearranging circumstances to match your assumption, you demonstrate the ultimate faith. This rest isn't passive resignation, but active trust. It's not the exhausted collapse of someone who's tried everything, but the peaceful repose of someone who knows the law is unfailing. The state in which you rest after your assumption is just as creative as the assumption itself. When you can sleep peacefully, go about your day joyfully, and move through the world as though your desire is already fulfilled, you create the perfect conditions for manifestation. If you're recognizing how your anxiety after prayer has been sabotaging your manifestations, type, "I'm learning to rest" in the law in the comments. Now let me show you how to test this principle with small experiments before applying it to larger desires. Now that you've discovered this profound secret about the power of your subconscious mind, I invite you to put it into practice tonight. The truth is, I've shared this message with you because I've seen it transform countless lives, including my own. The simple act of choosing the right words, clothing them with genuine feeling, and falling asleep in the consciousness of abundance can quite literally reshape your financial reality by morning. If you resonated with these timeless principles from Joseph Murphy's work, I'd love for you to join our community of conscious creators. Simply click the subscribe button below so we can continue this journey of transformation together. Each week, I share these hidden revelations that most will never discover, practical wisdom that cuts through the noise and connects you directly with your innate creative power. What's been most meaningful for me is reading your stories of breakthrough and revelation. If this message spoke directly to your heart today, write, "I am the conscious creator of my wealth" in the comments below. I read every comment personally and love connecting with each of you who are applying these principles. If you found value in these insights, touching that like button lets me know to continue sharing more of these transformative teachings. It's not just about numbers, it's about building a community of people dedicated to living from the highest consciousness rather than limiting circumstances. I've prepared another video that takes this understanding even deeper, revealing the exact morning ritual that compounds what you've planted during sleep. It's the perfect complement to tonight's practice. Click right here and I'll show you how to amplify your prosperity consciousness from the moment you open your eyes. Your journey of abundance is just beginning.